Virtualization is fun. Isn't it nice to know that you can create any number of virtual machines on your computer with the click of a few buttons? Whether you need an Ubuntu OS, Red Hat, Debian, Windows, or any other OS you could possibly think of, you can do that on your computer with software such as Hyper-V, VMware, or VirtualBox. But guess what? You do not have to spend all that time creating all those VMs that might take you hours to do. Instead, you should use the power of Vagrant. And with ChatGPT, you'll be able to create as many VMs as your system can sustain in a matter of seconds. Hello there, my name is Kelley Parker, and here on this channel, learn about everything pertaining to IT, video games, consumer electronics, and a lot more. Comment, subscribe, hit that bell for the notifications. Normally, when you create a virtual machine, you've got to use a hypervisor program such as VMware, VirtualBox, or Hyper-V. Download an ISO, allocate the appropriate hard drive space, RAM, and so many other configurations. But that takes time, right? What if you want to set up a dev environment in which you don't want to spend a couple of hours trying to not only set up the VMs, but also having to pull down all the latest updates and maybe adjust certain features that might not come on the OS by default? Well, Vagrant has your back. I'm going to be utilizing a few Linux boxes that I find on Vagrantup.com. VirtualBox, which you can download on the Oracle VirtualBox page. I'll be using Windows. We'll be using ChatGPT to help expedite the setup process for our virtual machines. So let's go ahead and head to our desktop right now. I'm going to go ahead and open up Firefox, and we are going to head over to VirtualBox Downloads, and simply download and install the Windows version of VirtualBox. It is free to download. And then you'll want to open up another tab. We're going to go to app Vagrantfile.com. All these links are in the description of the video, so if I'm typing a little bit too fast, be sure to refer to the description of this video for a quick how-to. And you'll want to stay on this page for now because Vagrantup.com basically links to all of the pre-built OS boxes. So think of these like ISOs, but we're going to be using these within the Vagrant framework to speed up our OS deployments. Open up ChatGPT at chat.openai.com. And lastly, but most importantly, head over to www.vagrantup.com. And here on this page, you will see a community link to download the self-managed, always free version of Vagrant. Click on download. Again, we're using the Windows version. So we want to click over to Windows and then download the AMD 64 version of Vagrant. It's downloading in the background. It's pretty large, about 259 megabytes. Go ahead and install that. And once you install VirtualBox and Vagrant, which will take several minutes on each, be sure to restart your computer and you should be right back here whenever you're finished. Let's give you a few seconds to do all that. And now that your computer's rebooted, we are ready to rock and roll. So let's open up VirtualBox here. And obviously, if you want to create your own virtual machine by scratch, you'd have to click on New, name your VM, select the folder you want it to be saved at. You got to find the ISO, select from your list of ISOs, click Next, set up your users like so, install your guest editions, host name, allocate your RAM processes. You get the point, right? That gets kind of tedious, right? Whenever you're working with installing multiple machines. It's important to deploy these at scale so you don't waste too much time setting them up. The most amount of time you should have to spend setting your VMs is just waiting for the VMs to install like a natural OS installation. We're going to keep VirtualBox closed. We're not going to have it open throughout the entirety of this process other than to access our VMs as VirtualBox will be running in headless mode. So at this point, you can go ahead and open up a PowerShell or command line script. I'm going to go ahead and open up PowerShell 7 in administrator mode. And you'll see as I type in the Vagrant command, it clearly shows as registered on my system as I can see all the common commands. And here inside of my d/vagrant_YouTube folder, I'm able to create a Vagrant file. And I'm going to do that by typing in Vagrant. And then we're going to move over to our app.vagrantup.com listing of Vagrant boxes. And this is how you download the trusty 64 version of Ubuntu. So I'm going to type in Vagrant init Ubuntu/trusty 64. A Vagrant file is created, and this Vagrant file shows you the configuration of your Vagrant box. And almost all this is commented out, but long story short, you have a configure line here and an end file. but there's other things you can configure as well. This is where ChatGPT will come in handy, because whenever we are using Vagrant init, that only creates one VM in this directory that I'm in. So if I wanted to create, let's say, do another Vagrant init with Ubuntu Xenial 64, I'm gonna get an error that says Vagrantfile already exists in this directory. Remove it before running Vagrant init. So this is the point where we're gonna go ahead and just more or less avoid running the init command. And this is where we're gonna use ChatGPT to help us generate Vagrant files so we can generate 5 VMs to run at the drop of one command. We're gonna go ahead and remove this Vagrant file. We want to create 3 Fedora boxes. Give me Vagrant file that creates 3 Fedora 38 VMs. And as you can see here, we have our code that we're going to use to create 3 Fedora VMs. I'm going to go inside Notepad++. I'm going to copy this code, paste it here, and I'm going to save this file as my Vagrant file. And as you can see with the formatting, we basically have our Vagrant configure line, which is boilerplate code that's required for all your Vagrant files. We're going to create our Fedora 1, Fedora 2, and Fedora 3. That's going to be our host names here. And it's going to be using what's called a generic /Fedora 38 box. So this configuration you're seeing here will give us very basic configurations for 3 Fedora boxes. So since we already have our Vagrant file created inside the same folder, just type in Vagrant up and it will begin creating all of the VMs. But if sometimes you may get an error like there's a problem with the VMware utility driver. If you get that error, just run the command again and use -- provider equals quote VirtualBox, because we're trying to ensure for this demonstration that all of our VMs run within VirtualBox, not VMware or Hyper-V. And as you can see here, bringing Fedora up, bringing Fedora 2 up, bringing Fedora 3 up. And while this is running, I'm going to go ahead and show you on VirtualBox, the actual app. You can see it's starting to be created right now. There is a creation of 1 Fedora VM, and you'll eventually see 3 of these. And then you'll have to let this run for several minutes because, like I said, the only amount of time you should have to wait for VMs to be set up is the amount of time it takes for the OS to install. So that's essentially what's happening here. We'll check back in a few minutes once all 3 of these VMs are spun up. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, all 3 machines are done. And you can check up on the status to ensure that all machines are up and running by typing in Vagrant status. And at this point, we don't need the Vagrant file anymore for the meantime. And as you can see, all machines are running. Fedora 1, Fedora 2, and Fedora 3 are running a base Fedora 38 image. So if you want to access one of the machines to test, let's type in Vagrant SSH Fedora 1. So let's try creating our own little lab here of 8 VMs running the general Fedora 37 box, 4 gigabytes of RAM each, MariaDB server installed. We're going to create a welcome file.txt at the root that says welcome, and then add a user to the account named Kelley. So this is what you would do for that. We're going to go under our ChatGPT, and I've already kind of done this command ahead of time just to kind of know the little messages you'll have to avoid along the way. But long story short, I said, give me a Vagrant file that has the following 8 VMs, 4 gigabytes RAM each, ignore the drive and the other items listed here. And this is our initial Vagrant file that we had. Now, I did encounter some errors along the way with this Node VM network setup, which we went ahead and ignored, and this Node VM provider. This is the eventual Vagrant file that we ended up with, which was for VMs 1 through 8. We're going to use the generic Fedora 37 box. We're going to call these host names VMI, which would be VM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Give all the VMs 4 gigabytes of memory each. Then we're going to run some provision lines. So basically it goes onto the terminal, says DNF install MariaDB server with the -y, touch welcome. Go ahead and tee the welcome text out to, or the welcome exclamation point string out to the text file, and add the username of Kelley. With, again, this is without the VirtualBox hard drive section. And this, you see my Notepad++ file is what I went with. And after running my Vagrant up command, again, that command is Vagrant up provider VirtualBox -- parallel, and it is going through all the machines right now. Virtual machine 1, as you can see here, already finished. It's finished VM 2, and now it is finishing on 3. And in my other PowerShell window here, we go to Vagrant status. You will see that we have 8 virtual machines listed with 3 of them currently running. And just like that, creating multiple virtual machines with a simple Vagrant file is all you need to get up and running with your own dev environment. Just be sure you have adequate amount of RAM for this process. A lot of your Linux OSs out there require 1 to 2 gigabytes of RAM. So I would go with 2 to 4 if you could swing it. So if you got a 64 gigabyte machine, then throw as many VMs within reason as you can, and you can have yourself a nice little dev environment. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like this video, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any questions specifically about Vagrant and how you can apply it in your environment, be sure to comment down below and I'll be sure to help you out best I can. We'll see you on the next video.